My name is Margaret, and at 58 years old, I've learned that silence can be more powerful than words. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, in a brownstone apartment overlooking the Charles River, where I've spent the last 35 years building a career in corporate consulting. The city's autumn winds carry memories through my windows, memories of choices made, battles fought, and a relationship with my father that has always been complicated. My father, Richard Montgomery, is 81 now, a retired businessman who built Montgomery Enterprises from the ground up. He's stubborn, traditional, and has never quite understood that his daughter could be just as capable as any son he never had. My mother passed away 12 years ago, and since then, my relationship with Dad has been a delicate dance of duty and distance. It was a crisp October evening when my phone rang. Dad's name flashed across the screen, and I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the one that comes from years of never quite measuring up to his expectations. "Margaret, I need you at dinner this Friday, 6 sharp, Morton's Steakhouse downtown." No greeting, no pleasantries. That was Dad. "What's the occasion?" I asked, setting down my evening tea. "Business matter. Important people will be there. I need family present." His tone was clipped, authoritative, the same voice he'd used throughout my childhood when issuing commands rather than making requests. "Of course, Dad. I'll be there." "Good. And Margaret?" He paused, and I could almost see him adjusting his reading glasses the way he always did before delivering something he considered important. "This dinner is crucial. I need you to just be there, look presentable, smile when appropriate. Don't talk about business. Don't offer opinions, just be pleasant company. Can you do that?" The words stung more than they should have. At 58, having built a successful consulting firm, having advised Fortune 500 companies, I was being asked to sit pretty and stay quiet. "I understand," I said quietly, though understanding and accepting were two different things. "It's not personal, Margaret. These men are old-fashioned. I just need this evening to go smoothly." After we hung up, I stood by my window watching the lights reflect off the river, feeling that old, familiar frustration. My father had always seen me as an extension of his image rather than a person with my own capabilities. Even now, decades into my career, he still treated me like a child who might embarrass him. But what Dad didn't know, what nobody except my closest colleague knew, was that I'd been working on something significant. For the past 18 months, I'd been quietly consulting for Hartwell Industries, a major manufacturing company that had been struggling with leadership transitions. The board had brought me in to help restructure their executive team and develop a succession plan. What started as a consulting contract had evolved into something more. The board had been impressed with my work, not just my strategic recommendations, but my ability to navigate complex corporate politics, to see solutions where others saw only problems. 3 weeks ago, they'd made me an offer I was still processing, the position of Chief Executive Officer. I hadn't accepted yet. I'd asked for time to consider, to ensure it was the right move. At my age, taking on a CEO role at a company the size of Hartwell was both exciting and daunting. It would mean longer hours, more responsibility, and less flexibility in my life. But it would also mean finally proving, to myself, to the industry, and yes, to my father, that I was more than just a competent consultant. I would be a leader. That night, I couldn't sleep. Dad's words echoed in my mind. "Don't talk about business, don't offer opinions, just be pleasant company." How many times in my life had I heard variations of that message? How many times had I swallowed my expertise, dimmed my light, made myself smaller to make him more comfortable? By morning, I'd made my decision about Hartwell's offer, and I had a plan for Friday's dinner. Chapter 2. The dinner setup. Friday arrived with typical New England autumn weather. Cool, crisp air and leaves swirling along Boylston Street as I made my way to Morton's. I dressed carefully in a tailored charcoal suit and simple pearl earrings, professional but not flashy. My father's voice echoed in my head, "Look presentable." I arrived exactly at 6, because Richard Montgomery's daughter knew better than to be late. The hostess led me to a private dining room in the back, and I paused at the entrance, taking in the scene. My father sat at the head of an elegant table, looking distinguished in his navy suit. To his right sat 2 men I didn't recognize, both in their 60s, expensive watches, confident postures. Across from them were 2 more men and 1 woman, all appearing to be serious business types. And then I saw him. James Whitmore, CEO of Hartwell Industries, sitting near the middle of the table, a slight smile on his face when he caught my eye. My stomach flipped. What was James doing at my father's dinner? "Margaret, there you are," Dad said, standing. "Everyone, this is my daughter, Margaret Montgomery. Margaret, please sit here." He gestured to a seat at the far end of the table, away from the center of conversation. I walked slowly to my designated seat, my mind racing. James gave me the subtlest nod, a gesture that said, "Trust me, we'll talk later." I sat down, placed my napkin in my lap, and waited. "Now that we're all here," Dad began, "let me formally introduce everyone. Gentlemen, and Carol, thank you for joining me tonight. As you know, I've been consulting with several of you about potential investment opportunities." The dinner proceeded with my father holding court, discussing market trends, investment strategies, and business opportunities. The others engaged actively, asking questions, offering insights, debating points. It became clear that this was a gathering of investors, people Dad was courting for some venture. I sat silently, as instructed, observing. Every so often, someone would glance my way as if expecting me to contribute, but I would simply smile politely and take another sip of water. My father seemed pleased with my compliance. About 40 minutes in, one of the men, introduced earlier as Robert Chen, a venture capitalist, turned to me. "Margaret, your father mentioned you work in consulting. What's your specialty?" Before I could answer, Dad interjected smoothly. "Margaret does well for herself, helps small businesses with their organizational structures. Nothing too complex." He smiled at me indulgently. "Isn't that right, dear?" The dismissal was casual, automatic, and completely inaccurate. My firm had handled multi-million-dollar restructuring projects, but I simply nodded, letting the mischaracterization stand. James Whitmore's eyebrow raised slightly, but he said nothing. The conversation moved on, and I remained quiet, playing the role I'd been assigned. But I was listening carefully, piecing together information. It became apparent that my father was trying to organize an investment consortium for a manufacturing acquisition. He was positioning himself as the lead, the one with connections and expertise. What he didn't know was that the company he was discussing, the opportunity he was so excited about, was a competitor of Hartwell Industries. And several of his potential investors were people who had existing relationships with Hartwell. The irony wasn't lost on me. "The manufacturing sector is ripe for consolidation," Dad was saying, warming to his subject. "With the right leadership and capital, a mid-sized company could become a major regional player within 5 years. Leadership is certainly key," James said carefully. "In my experience, the CEO can make or break these transitions. You need someone who understands not just the numbers, but the people, the culture, the long-term vision." "Exactly right," Dad agreed enthusiastically. "That's why I've been so selective about who I bring into this conversation. We need smart money and smarter guidance." Carol, the woman investor, leaned forward. "Richard, I have to ask, who did you have in mind to actually run this operation? Do you have a CEO candidate identified?" Dad smiled confidently. "I have several strong candidates in mind, experienced men who've run similar operations successfully." Men, of course. I took another sip of water and caught James watching me with something that looked like amusement mixed with sympathy. Chapter 3. The Revelation. Dinner continued through multiple courses, appetizers, salads, steaks that melted like butter. The conversation flowed around me like I was a piece of furniture, occasionally acknowledged, but never truly included. My father was in his element, holding forth on business strategy with the confidence of someone who'd been successful and believed that success made him an expert on everything. There was a part of me that felt the old familiar hurt, the little girl who'd brought home straight A's only to have Dad comment that math had never been that hard anyway. But there was also a growing sense of something else, power, maybe, or justice. The knowledge that sometimes the quietest person in the room knows the most important things. As dessert was being served, creme brulee and coffee, Robert Chen returned to the subject of leadership. "Richard, I appreciate your vision here, but I'm not moving forward without knowing who's going to execute it. The CEO question is critical. Can you share any of those names you mentioned?" Dad shifted slightly, and I recognized the tells of someone who'd been speaking more confidently than his actual planning warranted. "I'm in discussions with several candidates. These things take time, discretion." "Of course," Carol added, "but surely you have a front-runner." Someone who's expressed serious interest? The table had gone quiet, everyone waiting for Dad's answer. He cleared his throat. I have a few more meetings scheduled, but I'm confident we'll have the right person in place before any deal moves forward. Translation: he didn't have anyone committed. James set down his coffee cup with a gentle clink. Richard, if I may, I think there's something everyone at this table should know. It's relevant to this conversation. My father looked pleased, assuming James was about to offer support. Of course, James, please. 3 weeks ago, my board of directors at Hartwell Industries made an offer to someone we believe is one of the finest strategic minds in the manufacturing consulting world. Someone who spent the last 18 months helping us restructure our operations, improve our efficiency by 32%, and develop a leadership pipeline that has our shareholders excited about the future. The table leaned in, interested. Dad smiled, clearly thinking James was about to suggest a candidate. We offered this person our CEO position, James continued. We've been waiting for an answer, hoping they'd accept, because in my 30 years in this business, I've rarely met someone who combines analytical brilliance with genuine leadership ability and the kind of emotional intelligence that makes good companies become great ones. That's wonderful, James, Dad said. Perhaps this person would be interested in discussing opportunities with our group as well? Actually, Richard, I received my answer this afternoon. James turned to look directly at me, his expression warm. Margaret accepted our offer. She'll be announced as Hartwell Industries' new CEO on Monday morning. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. Every eye turned to me. My father's face went through a remarkable series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and something that might have been embarrassment. I set down my napkin carefully and met James's eyes with a small smile before turning to address the table. It's true, I said, my voice steady and clear after nearly 2 hours of silence. I've been consulting with Hartwell for the past year and a half, and I'm honored to accept their offer to serve as CEO. It's a tremendous opportunity, and I'm excited about the work ahead. Robert Chen started laughing, not mockingly, but with genuine delight. Richard, your daughter is taking over Hartwell Industries, and you've spent the evening pitching us on investing in their competitor, while asking her not to talk about business? Carol was grinning too. This is remarkable. Margaret, I've heard about the turnaround at Hartwell. The industry buzz has been significant. Congratulations. Thank you, I replied graciously. My father found his voice. Margaret, why didn't you tell me? I met his eyes, keeping my tone gentle but firm. You told me not to talk about business, Dad. I was following your instructions. Chapter 4. New Understanding. The dinner's atmosphere transformed completely. Suddenly, I was at the center of conversation. No longer the silent daughter in the corner, but a newly appointed CEO worthy of attention and questions. Robert, Carol, and the other investors wanted to know about my vision for Hartwell, my strategic priorities, my thoughts on the industry's future. I answered their questions with the expertise I'd spent 35 years developing, watching my father's face as he slowly realized exactly how much he'd underestimated me. Not just tonight, but for my entire life. The investment discussion about Dad's competing venture quietly died. It was awkward. Several of the people he'd invited were now more interested in potential partnerships with Hartwell than in backing his acquisition plans. The evening that was supposed to showcase his business acumen had instead revealed his blind spots. As the dinner wound down and people began saying their goodbyes, James pulled me aside. That was quite the reveal, he said with a warm smile. When you called this afternoon to accept and mentioned your father's dinner tonight, I couldn't resist. I hope you don't mind that I made it dramatic. Mind? It was perfect, I laughed. After the others left, Dad and I stood in the restaurant's lobby. The October night had turned cold, and through the windows, I could see my breath clouding in the air. I don't understand, he said finally. Why didn't you tell me you were consulting with Hartwell? Why didn't you mention the CEO offer? When would I have told you, Dad? You called me 4 days ago for the first time in 3 months, and your instructions were clear. Show up, look presentable, don't talk about business. He flinched. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant exactly that. You've always meant that. I kept my voice calm, factual. You've spent my entire life treating me like an accessory to your achievements rather than recognizing I might have achievements of my own. That's not fair, Margaret. I've always supported... You've tolerated, I corrected gently. There's a difference. You've tolerated my career as long as it didn't challenge your perception of yourself as the business expert in the family. "Dad, my firm has handled restructuring projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars." He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him processing, really thinking about my words perhaps for the first time. "I didn't know," he said finally, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Because you never asked." "Not really. You'd ask how work was going, but you never wanted details. You'd change the subject whenever I tried to share accomplishments. You love me, Dad. I know that, but you've never respected me as a professional equal." The wind rattled the restaurant's windows. People walked past on the sidewalk, bundled in coats, living their lives completely unaware of this small moment of truth happening in the warm glow of Morton's lobby. "Your mother would be proud of you," Dad said quietly. "She always said you were the smartest person she knew." I think I resented that sometimes, resented that she saw in you what I couldn't or wouldn't. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. "She'd also tell you it's not too late to change," I replied. "To see me for who I actually am, not who you assumed I was." He nodded slowly. "I'd like to try, if you'll let me." We stood there, father and daughter, the weight of decades of misunderstanding between us, but also, for the first time, the possibility of something better. "Come to my announcement on Monday," I said. "Hartwell is holding a press conference at 10. Come and listen to what I've actually been doing with my career. Really listen." "I'll be there," he promised, and he was. Monday morning, I stood at a podium in Hartwell Industries headquarters, facing journalists, industry analysts, and investors. The room was packed with people curious about the surprise CEO appointment. Dad sat in the third row, looking distinguished and attentive. I gave my prepared remarks about my vision for Hartwell, our strategic priorities, our commitment to innovation. I answered tough questions with honesty and confidence. And when it was over, when the room erupted in applause and people lined up to shake my hand, I saw my father wiping his eyes. He waited until the crowd thinned before approaching. "That was extraordinary, Margaret. You were commanding, articulate, visionary. I had no idea." He stopped himself. "No, that's not true. I had no idea because I never looked. I'm sorry." "Thank you, Dad. I've been thinking about what you said Friday night, about respect. I want to learn about what you do, really learn. Would you have coffee with me sometime and tell me about your career?" I smiled, feeling something tight in my chest finally release. "I'd like that very much." Over the following months, Dad and I rebuilt our relationship on a new foundation. He came to understand the scope and complexity of my work. He stopped making assumptions about my capabilities and started asking questions about my expertise. He even began introducing me at his social functions as my daughter Margaret, CEO of Hartwell Industries, with a pride that sounded genuine because it finally was. The night he'd told me not to talk had paradoxically given me the most powerful platform I'd ever had. My silence had made my eventual words carry weight they might not have otherwise, and his instruction to stay quiet had backfired in the most spectacular, educational way possible. I'm 58 years old, running a major manufacturing company, and finally experiencing what it feels like to be fully seen and respected by my father. It took decades longer than it should have, required a dramatic revelation, but we got there. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the truth they don't want to hear delivered in a way they can't ignore. And sometimes being told to be silent gives you the perfect opportunity to prove that your words, when finally spoken, are worth the wait. The new CEO wasn't just me taking a job. It was me stepping fully into my power, refusing to be diminished, and insisting that the people who love me also respect me. That's the kind of leadership that matters most, not just in boardrooms, but in families, in relationships, in the quiet moments when you decide you're done making yourself small for someone else's comfort. I waited, just like Dad asked, and then I spoke, and everything changed.